It has been an interesting several days in the world of pro wrestling. We've had on-screen drama, we've had backstage drama, and just about everything in between. And to help me break it all down, joining me on the hotline, my dear friend, the man behind the House of Wrestling. He is Nick Hausman. Follow him on Twitter at Nick_Hausman. I guess follow him on X or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Nick, how are you, bud?
I'm great. I was telling you off air, I had my first ever surgery this morning, and it was a minor surgery. And most people don't get excited about surgery, but I've dealt with neck pain since I was taking choke slams as a manager in pro wrestling. And I'm 38 years old, finally all balled up. And a couple weeks ago, a little over a month ago, I woke up. I was in a lot of pain. Finally got it addressed. And it all culminated to this morning. I went in, I got an epidural. They dropped steroids in my neck. I have like full motion of my neck again. And I feel great, Stu. I am so excited to talk with you. I don't know if anybody's a King of the Hill fan. There's an episode where Peggy sprinkles steroids in Hank's coffee, and he just becomes this like powerhouse, and he doesn't know why. I know why, and I feel I got that Hank Hill energy. I got that Texas energy going here. I'm from the Woodlands, so I got that Texas energy here going today.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Let's start with the backstage drama in AEW. And
oh boy,
I know it seems like every couple months this stuff raises its head and there's all sorts of stuff. And I've tried to follow it, but honestly, there are so many different sides to it. It has to do with CM Punk with Collision. There's drama with him and Hangman Adam Page. There's drama with him and Christopher Daniels. Now apparently there's drama with him and Jack Perry. If you can, and I'll give you a cookie for it. If you can, try to give us the Cliff Notes version of what is going on with CM Punk and AEW Collision.
Well, first of all, what kind of cookie am I getting for this information?
I got chocolate chip in house.
I'm sold. I'm in as long as it's not some weird praline cookie. All right. So I woke up yesterday on Monday morning because it has been largely a one-man operation over at House of Wrestling until now. Thank you to Nick Miller and Ennis who have joined the team over at House of Wrestling, started writing. They're contributing. It's making my life a lot easier, and it's really yielding dividends for the site. So I wake up Monday morning, and I'm reviewing what's coming in from Monday morning, what's happening from the weekend. And I saw the CM Punk promo about Adam Page, and then in short order, I had heard Adam Page wasn't there, Matt Hardy wasn't there, Christopher Daniels wasn't there, and then there was this Ryan Nemeth story, who's the younger brother of Dolph Ziggler, WWE star, and is also he's appeared in some dark matches and other appearances in AEW. So I looked at the totality of it, and I was like, well, Page, that seems like there could be something there, but everything I've heard up until this point backstage insinuated that Punk was like looking for resolution with the Elite. And so if Adam Page wanted to be at Collision and do a promo, I don't think that Punk would have a problem with that. The way it was worded in the Observer was very interesting because they noted that Adam Page was scheduled to do a promo, but the location was moved, and kind of knowing the history of how people view a locker room that has a CM Punk influence with the Colt Cabana stories that flamed up. While Meltzer and Observer didn't outright say it, they kind of left it teed up for you to fill in the blank for yourself. And that's where the rumor mill started running. I don't know how the Matt Hardy stuff got thrown in there with the booking and unbooking, but of the four stories that I initially referenced, I was not able to find anything that involved Punk and Page. And my story was like a day or so ago. I know that there's PW Insider and them reporting that now, right? Like there's no link. But whatever. So I never saw anything with Paige. I don't understand the Matt Hardy stuff. Never was able to tie those two together. Nemeth, Punk doesn't like the tweet that Nemeth put out where he called him softest man alive. And there was a confrontation backstage that me, Fightful Observer, everybody kind of dropped reports about at the same time. We all heard a bunch of things at the same time. Mm-hmm. Does appear to be animus there with Punk and Nemeth over that. There was a weird confrontation. Didn't get physical. Did end with an awkward handshake at best. And then as Punk is taking control of the locker room at Collision, doesn't really want to have anybody that he perceives as potentially causing issues there. Asked Ryan Nemeth not to be there. Then there's the head of talent relations, Christopher Daniels. Now, I was always under the impression that Daniels and Punk were cool. ROH guys, longtime vets. I never knew why there'd be an issue. Turns out, if we all flash back about a year, in this AEW all-out altercation that took place backstage after the media scrum, there were, of course, sides of people fighting back and forth, pulling people apart. Ace Steel was on Punk's side, fighting people off, and Ace is no longer allowed backstage at Collision or, I believe, any AEW tapings. Now, Daniels, from how it's being portrayed to me, was on the side of the Elite and the Young Bucks and being aggressive in the direction of Punk in Punk's locker room. And so, therefore, Punk decided that if Ace Steel can't be here, Christopher Daniels can't be here. And that's being allowed to happen, which I think tells you everything about CM Punk's control of Collision. It seems to be complete control, not just of creative, not just of the locker room, but every aspect of Collision seems to be completely CM Punk driven. The Jack Perry stuff, it just broke. Fightful put it out. Jack Perry wanted to use real glass in a segment. Punk was like, "What are you thinking? That's insane. We would never do that on Collision. If you want to do that, go to Dynamite." Little pot shot there. And, doesn't seem like those two are on the best of terms. But that's the whole spectrum, Stu. I don't know how. I think I did it in about 4 minutes, 5 minutes, but that's it. That's the whole kit and caboodle. I'm happy to field any questions.
That was actually really good. It just feels like this seems to pop up whenever AEW gets ready to do something big. And, less than 2 weeks, the biggest show they've ever done, the biggest show possibly in wrestling, with All In at Wembley in London. And yet there seems to be this little undercurrent of drama that flares up at just that time. Let me ask, and there's so much to ask about, but I'll keep it. I'm gonna keep to this because I honestly I'm not a fan of this stuff. It's one of those things. A lot of it, and I think you would agree. A lot of times, scenarios like this end up being non-stories. So CM Punk seems to basically have control of Collision. He's got his folks there. We know Tony Khan apparently is reported. Tony Khan has basically no commented on this.
Yeah, Tony didn't want to address it. He did say he was glad that everybody was interested in AEW wrestlers and what's going on after the show. So I guess he's glad that CM Punk started this news cycle by saying this thing while by his own account possibly concussed about Adam Page. Is a he's happy fans are interested in what's going on off the air, which is take it for whatever you want. That's like a magic eye of a response.
Well, it feels a little, Barnum and Bailey, as long as they get the name right. It almost harkens back to several years ago. Vince had that kind of same attitude on stuff. It just, is there any sense that Tony will eventually take more control and say, look, you may be the star, but this is my company. These are my shows. You fall in line with me. Or do you think Tony is even that kind of personality?
Well, part of me, I do not want to attempt to get into the head of Tony Khan because there are so many factors to take into account when trying to figure out why Tony Khan makes the decisions he's making, because he's expanding very quickly, right? He's got a lot of egos in the room. He's got a lot of money on the line. Very difficult to often know why Tony Khan is making one decision or another. I would think that Tony giving Punk the power that he has over Collision is maybe by design. If this guy's if things are so bad, and these guys are really trying to be territorial, they're trying to create their own unique spaces to try to legitimately outdo each other. I mean, as the owner of a company, I would rather own Coke and Pepsi. I would rather own these two companies that are different flavors of the same thing, really actually genuinely want to try to do a better product than the other, and maybe pick up a huge sack of money in the process, right? Mm-hmm. And having worked with football players and musicians and all other kinds of egos, is it really that far-fetched for him to say, this is your album, Punk, you're Jay-Z, this is your Black album, this is Collision. Now, I got a lot of other artists that are going to help you collaborate right now. I got people that are going to help you come up with the beats, but this is the Black album from Jay-Z. That's not crazy to me. And you just kind of hope it all works out, Stu. You just kind of, as it goes, take the different artists under your umbrella and just try to make it work.
I agree. Like I said, it's just you get tired of hearing about this stuff, and it's I am now. Look, there are probably those that thrive on this stuff, but for me, it's like, look, just get in line and take care of the stuff, take care of the business, and go about your way. So,
well, I'll say this one real quick thing. I do think that the timing, and again, Punk was concussed, so it seems, right, or rocked, whatever he wants to say. The timing of it is interesting because Collision just came off their lowest viewership ever. And this last episode was up against a bunch of football pre-games. Also it didn't advance as far as I thought it would down the field. I'll put it that way. To use puns all over the place. I do wonder if Punk doing this was in a way to take control back of the headlines. I mean, he has, right? If Collision sees 200,000 extra viewers this week and is back to 700,000 viewers in his top 5 cable show, I would think that part of it would have to be attributed to what is going on right now in the public discourse. So
yeah, it's possible. And this is, I saw Mike Sempervive, our good friend, he tweeted something out today about, Collision's about to head into some serious competition with college football. And I know,
right,
like here, everybody's looking towards that second week of college football with the Texas Longhorns going to Tuscaloosa to face Alabama. That's a big primetime game. And, you got a lot of games that weekend, and you wonder how much of a hit it's going to inflict on Collision that week. I mean, we'll see, but September 9th is going to be an interesting day for Collision, going up against some big time college football matches. So,
and that'll be coming out of All In and All Out, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Hopefully there's something that big that happens there to kind of get people on the hook, right? I don't know. We'll see.
You would hope. You would hope. Shall see.
Hope.
Speaking of All In, or All In 0 Hour, so you got MJF and Adam Cole, who are going to face each other for the world title at All In the main event. And oh, by the way, they're still friends, which has been fascinating and weird at the same time. But before that, during 0 Hour, they've decided to challenge Aussie Open for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. So you're going to have them tagging up in 0 hour, try to win tag gold, and then main event they face each other for the world title. This is an interesting strategy, to say the least.
Yeah, I love it and I hate it. I both of these things. I'll tell you why I don't like it. Okay. First of all, before I get to the stuff that I do like about it doesn't really have a big bite to me, right? It doesn't, you know, when you think about big collisions, you know, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, heel baby face, I'm paying my money to see this guy beat up. I don't really know who I'm paying that money to see beat up, right? And that's not definitive to me. And for the biggest wrestling show of all time, I don't know. But here's the good of it. I think by the time the show starts, they may give you a reason to put your money down. I wonder if it's going to be too late, because I think that in the haste of selling all these pay-per-views and getting the show together, they need a big marquee match to put there. Somebody in the room throws out this idea: ROH tag titles, MJF brochachos with Adam Cole versus for the titles, and then we got the main event. Now it sets the stage for some kind of screw over, right? MJF screws over Adam Cole screws over MJF, and then as the lights close on 0 hour, oh my God, there is actual tension here. I want to see X beat X because I can't believe they screwed them over. Biggest show of all time. It would be the ultimate last second build, but that is definitely an opportunity. If on 0 hour, these two guys just win the titles and beat Aussie Open, I have no idea what business has done for that. It's a great moment, and I don't really think it sells any pay-per-views. I think in order for this match to have to work, you got to use it as a storyline device, and I almost wonder if it's too little too late if they do it in that way that I just laid out, but we'll see.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and it's been talked about for months about the fact that, you know, you got All In and then All Out the following week. You know, they're putting all their eggs on All In for sure. Then of course, you know, I think they may be close to 80,000, if not over 80,000 now.
Oh yeah, they surpassed 92, so they're on their way to all-time status. I think they've either surpassed WWE's all-time ticket sales record or are just about to, something like that.
Right, and that's probably going to happen by the time the event comes around. But then you're going to turn right around and do a pay-per-view in Chicago the following week. Man, it's going to be. They've got to put something together for All Out in Chicago that makes people want to drop another 50 to see it. Otherwise, it's going to be, you're talking about, you know, basically the same viewership as a Rampage.
I mean, I gotta think. I mean, the Bucks do not seem sold on the Punk situation. It does seem kind of open ended with Omega. I think that's a potential thing hanging out there. Maybe Punk Omega. It's not the full thing that you want, but it's part of what you want. I think could be out there. But I'm also with you, Stu. I'm interested to see how they handle these two things back to back. You know, but again, Tony Khan loves this last second booking. Cards getting thrown together last second. Matches getting thrown together last second. Announcements getting put out there last second. If what I'm talking about with MJF and Adam Cole is being, you know, considered, that's the absolute last second idea. You know, Tony Khan thrives in that. Give me a short period of time. I'll sell your pay-per-views. You'll get great action. Don't question my booking. Wrestling Observer Booker of the Year type energy.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see as we get closer to those two events. Let's switch gears. Let's switch to WWE. And we got to start with Jey Uso, quote, quitting the Bloodline, SmackDown, and WWE, end quote. All right, that was definitely a choice, because coming out of SummerSlam, you had Roman Reigns winning yet again by interference, this time Jimmy Uso. And I'm thinking, okay, this, for, you know, not to Not to say it's, it's bottomed out, but it does feel like maybe the bloodline storyline may be about to jump the shark. But then they pull this thing with Jay quitting. Give me your thoughts on Jay quitting and where you see that leading.
I mean, I think it leads to Jay and Jimmy feuding this summer in some fashion. Maybe Jay acting like this rebel outsider, getting involved somehow in Jimmy's business. I think it's between those two. I think it's used as a way to kind of relegate Roman to something else, or maybe leave TV for a while. We don't really know what his plans are, but Jimmy and Jay setting up at each other's odds. Solo Sikoa in the mix. Paul Heyman's there still. I think that they're kind of reverting back to this program to. I hate to diminish it by saying filling space, filling time, but like this is a natural bridge you could use the players that are more available in the Bloodline saga to get through another pay-per-view or two before you get back into the meat and potatoes of what's really going on with Roman Reigns in his WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. That's what I think is happening here.
How long would you have Jay, for lack of a better term, unemployed by WWE? Because in my mind, I agree with what you're saying. I think this is gonna center around, Jay and Jimmy and Solo, and it'll give Roman, time off. He's gonna take some time off. I think he goes away for a little bit. How long do you see Jay, not being, quote, in WWE? And when do you see him come back, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, Survivor Series is in November. It's the weekend of Survivor Series. They did that as a gift to Tony Khan, who loves Chicago as his Thanksgiving market. And I still feel like the Bloodline will be back on the same page in some fashion by then, and we'll be on the same side in a War Games type match. I mean, I guess it could still be like a Bloodline Civil War where Jimmy and Jay have their sides and maybe Roman's in the wings, but I tend to think that there's going to be some kind of Bloodline versus other faction at Survivor Series. I mean, it just makes more sense to me to fill the time in between with Jimmy J stuff, an explosion that rubber bands back, and they all somehow find themselves back in the same foxhole together at odds with an entity, maybe like a Judgment Day. It's Raw versus SmackDown, so actually that would make a ton of sense. Something like that. So I think that Jay. So what is it? August, September, October, November. So we got 4 months. I think at least 2 months of Jay running around NWO style. Maybe you get a non-sanctioned match between him and Jimmy at one of the in-between pay-per-views on the way to Survivor Series. Who knows?
You got Payback in 2.5 weeks, and then the October pay-per-view, which is
Fastlane, I believe.
Fastlane, yes. Here's my thought. Have Jay outside of WWE at least to Fastlane. Maybe have him pop up every now and again to mess with Jimmy on SmackDown. But I say, I would go so far as have Jay do a couple of indie dates. Let's say WWE friendly. For instance, the Usos have history with Reality of Wrestling down in Houston. Booker T's school and promotion. Have Jay show up at a Reality Wrestling show. I know they got one coming up in a few weeks. Have Jay show up. Just, be a random, surprise tag partner or something like that. But let's cement this, because if they bring Jay back on TV like this Friday, then everybody's going to say, okay, yeah, this was just, this is just ploy. Let's give it a little meat. Let's act as if Jay Uso is no longer a WWE wrestler, and then have some way to get it back. And then you have, like you said, Jay versus Jimmy at Fastlane, maybe. I'm not see that's it, and I'm not sure you would do it at Payback just because I think it's too soon.
Here's where I would go with that. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Go
go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I think payback's a little too soon because again, you're talking 2.5 weeks. I would definitely hold him out until sometime in like mid-September, and then have him coming back, and then end up like you mentioned, unsanctioned match Jay versus Jimmy.
Yeah, man, I love the idea of him going out of WWE because they tried that with Punk, right? And he lasted like I think it was like 2 weeks on the indie, did like an AAW appearance, and then they were like, get back here, we're not going to be doing this Summer of Punk angle the way that you want to do this Summer of Punk angle. I think it's great. I think it would be great though if you wanted to sell it. Man, my first thought would be, God, wouldn't it be great if he showed up in AEW, right? Like, you know,
That would that would be the ultimate. Have him show up in Wembley.
God, wouldn't it be great? They're like, hey, you know what? We'll use the elite footage in Cody's super popular documentary, and in exchange, we'll give you Jay for a night. He's gonna pop up and he's gonna make some noise. Hey, you talk about an all out main event for Chicago. Give me CM Punk versus a renegade Jey Uso. Let's get real weird with it. I think what's far more possible. I'm not gonna even say likely. I'll say possible is he goes to New Japan, which they have some kind of want to seem to have a relationship with. I mean, they did business with Noah, but they also, with the Shinsuke stuff and Muda, but they also allowed Bullet Club to appear at New Japan. Carl and Luke were allowed to go, I believe, for Wrestle Kingdom with AEW's approval. Man, wouldn't it be cool if he showed up and just like helped the Gorillas of Destiny, Tama, and like did something with Tama Tonga over in New Japan? Maybe even like, I don't know, like became Bullet Club for a little while or something like that, and brought Tama back with him from Japan. And Tama and Tonga and Toa, I believe is his brother. Bring them both back, right? Brings the Gorillas of Destiny with him back from Japan, and it's like this outside faction to like even the odds with the Bloodline. Man, who
That could be.
I like that a lot, Stu.
That was. I know there was talk in fact I think I was speculating about so Tama Tonga's contract with New Japan was coming up in the spring, and I had it in my mind Jay and Jimmy are out of the bloodline. Here comes Gorillas of Destiny. They become the new bloodline.
But that's the thing is like, if because I also was surprised because if Brian Pillman Jr. is in the mix down there in the PC, like they're saying, like Tama Tonga is one of the top free agents out there. He'll get some attention. Man, I love the idea of Jay leaving, getting hooked up with the Gorillas of Destiny, maybe even in New Japan, and coming back to WWE with them. That would be hot. And Roman's there, and he's sitting in the locker room with PW Insider, Pro Wrestling Illustrated in his magazine in his hand, showing Paul, like, Paul, you see what this guy's doing over in Japan? And Paul's like, give me that, my tribal chief. I'll make sure it's burned. I'll put it into the incinerator or the crematorium where they put Bobby Heenan's body. Don't worry about it. It's gone. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Rey Mysterio filling in for the injured Santos Escobar, faces Austin Theory, beats Austin Theory, wins the U.S. title. Now, the scuttlebutt I've heard, the talk around the campfire, was that this was a makeup. This was the original story before Rey got injured in the match he had with Santos. So this was kind of bringing that back around. Give me your thoughts on Rey Mysterio as U.S. champion. How long before we see Rey and Santos blow up and the LWO go away?
I don't think it'll blow up. Santos and Rey, there's some tension there. Could happen. I think that this is more likely a situation of them wanting to put the U.S. title on Rey because his son Dominic has the North American Championship. Now both Mysterios have titles. Survivor Series is, again, only a few months off. They always do champions versus champions matches. You could put father versus son with the titles on the line here with each other. And maybe even unify these belts. They've been in a unification type mood. I don't really know if WWE needs another secondary title or if NXT does. If they prefer this idea of a floating secondary champion that goes between maybe Raw and NXT or somewhere else. So I do see the tension in the LWO could blow up there. Could be a situation where they stay together until, again, the stuff with the Judgment Day gets revived a little bit closer to Survivor Series.
Speaking of Judgment Day, we saw it on Monday night on Raw. JD McDonough now is kind of like helping him out because he's a buddy with Finn Balor and such.
Sure.
Where do you see that going? Does JD McDonough become part of Judgment Day, or does this eventually lead to Finn Balor splitting off from Judgment Day?
I think it's more likely JD finds himself into Judgment Day. I mean, they're so dysfunctional, Stu. How hard's it to get in? Right? They've all screwed each other over, except for Rhea and Dom. Right? They've all kind of screwed each other one way or another. At a certain point, they all seem to be like, "All right, dum-dums, get back here. We got work to do." Right? And they all go back in a Three Stooges style at some point. Screw it up again. I don't think it's that hard to get into Judgment Day. I don't think they're looking past too much these days. I think JD's got a real good shot. I think he'll probably wind up in there, and maybe we see him as a device once in to create more inner tension. Right? They want to do more stuff with the bloodline. They want to do stuff with the Judgment Day that's like the bloodline. He's certainly the new roommate that they could add to kind of create new plot devices within them, kind of like Solo was.
Okay, so maybe kind of like they bring him in and he becomes that wedge, like you say, to kind of eventually possibly tear them apart, or at least put some friction in between them. So
yeah, because you want to string it out. You want people always waiting for it to implode or not implode. You want to make them wait, because once it happens, it happens. You got to pick a new direction. So I think they want to continue. Obviously, they want to continue to string this tension out, just like they're doing with the bloodline, right? And I think that JD is somebody they want to work with and would be great at serving the role that they're looking for, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's very possible. These women's tag titles, which, my God, I mean, be careful if you have one, because it may mean the end. So Chelsea Green's talking to Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce is about to ask her probably to relinquish them. She says she wants to have auditions. Here comes Chance and Carter. And then all of a sudden, here blows in Piper Niven, who we haven't seen on TV in at least a couple months. All of a sudden, beats down Chance and Carter, walks up to Chelsea, grabs one of the belts, says, "I'm your partner. I'm now one half of the women's tag champs." And apparently that's the way it's going to work.
Yeah. And go ahead. Yeah.
Kind of a choice.
Yeah, WWE's acknowledged it. They made them the official tag champions on their roster page. So it's a done deal. It's signed in blood, baby. Piper Niven is women's tag team champion. And you know what? I hate it. I think that it is a complete disservice to the women's tag teams division and the championships. It just shows a complete lack of rhyme reason for these belts. They're completely insignificant. We are back to waiting for another credible, legitimate tag team to come along, take them away from whoever is champion at the moment, and hopefully stay uninjured long enough to make those belts worth something. And Stu, I hate to be so blunt, but that is the cycle we are trapped in at the moment.
It's just so bad. This is worse than the whole, the swapping the Raw and SmackDown tag belts when they did the draft last time. This is just, okay, I'm a champion. Well, okay, you have been on TV since like May. You didn't wrestle a match. You just walk in and boom, there you are. And like you said, these women's tag titles, besides being, insignificant, good Lord, there's got to be some sort of curse or something. I heard something today about have Isla Dawn and Alba Fire, get them, have some sort of backstage thing where they they actually do put a curse on the tag belt. So
Oh man, I heard that there was when Mercedes and Trinity left WWE, there was a lot of cursing on the way out the door. I didn't know that they were actually casting curses on the titles as they dropped them on Johnny Ace's desk. I mean, that was news to me. I didn't know there was a blood ritual as they walked out the door, but I guess that has to have been the case.
yeah, I suppose so. Shinsuke Nakamura, we've turned him heel so he can challenge Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. Now, I recall Shinsuke's last heel turn, which was around WrestleMania 34, or is after WrestleMania 34. And at least from my view, it didn't go that great. So is this heel turn going to be any better, or is this just for the sake of having a challenger for Seth?
I think it's the sake of having a challenger for Seth. I Shinsuke, I don't know. Right. Again, like Piper Niven, it's just so out of nowhere. I did enjoy the Raw segment more than I expected. I thought Shinsuke, he just is a really smarmy heel. The speaking in Japanese stuff was great, but it only lasted maybe 90 seconds. And then Seth Rollins dominated like 5 minutes of airtime on him, and that tells you all you need to know. Vince loves storytellers that can speak English fluently, right? And, I bet Rollins had the list of people he wanted to work with that he thought could give him great matches. And Nakamura was arguably top of that list. And, there you go. That's how you get the match together. I think the person that takes the title from Seth will be a Drew McIntyre or a Sami Zayn, somebody that got close with Roman Reigns and wasn't able to grab him. I think they're going to try to give either one of those two people the satisfying ending that, or even, I mean, Cody doesn't really seem to want this title. He wants Roman's title, but one of those guys, Cody, Drew, Sammy, I see is when they're in line, far more viable competition. I don't see Shinsuke in that light.
I agree. This is, like you say, this feels like, just for the sake of giving Seth a challenger for Payback or Fastlane. It's not going to mean much after the match and I fully expect Seth to retain. Shinsuke will maybe wrestle a few matches, but then we'll figure out, oh, well, let's go back to have him in his face so at least the fans can sing his song. We'll see. I like I said, I'm not crazy about it, but okay. The segment was fine for what it was. I'm interested in seeing what Shinsuke whispered into Seth's ear to make him so alarmed. So we shall see.
I think he said, I got access to your external hard drive.
Okay, sure. He is Hausman. Read everything he's got on houseofwrestling.com. Follow him on Twitter at Nick_Hausman. Nick, I appreciate it, man. All the best to you. Are you going to London?
I am not. I'm not going to London. I am. I'm going to be here in Chicago. I went to London for Money in the Bank. I only have so much time I can spend in the air and on the ground, and so I'll be here covering it with my team, Ennis and Nick Miller. Two great guys I'm excited to work with over at House of Wrestling, HAUSofwrestling.com. Come check us out. It's crazy because everything that we talked about here on the show today with Stu, I have more in-depth coverage written up on the site from either me, Ennis, or Nick Miller. So go check us out, HAUSofwrestling.com. We're on podcast platforms. We got a show, and we also have a YouTube channel as well. But Stu, more importantly, I just want to thank you so much for giving me the time. I always love talking wrestling with you, and you got me hot out of the surgery room. I got holes in my neck. I got steroids flowing through my spine. I got hot energy. Going up in here today. And Stu got me all fired up and talking about some of my favorite pro wrestling stories. So, Stu, I want to thank you for taking this energy and channeling it and having a wonderful conversation with me tonight.
Well, I had to give you a little bit of this Texas heat, send it up Chicago way. So, Nick, I appreciate it, man. All the best to you. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Stu.